What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to From the Top Rope with Andrew Crawford. I'm your boy Andrew Crawford, not the GOAT, but I look like a GOAT. Close enough. Am I right? I think I'm right. And today on the channel, before I tell you, two things gotta happen. You gotta like, share, and subscribe, and I've gotta drink something to keep me hydrated, as health is wealth all 2026. Also, before we get started, I want to tell you, you matter, in case no one else has told you that today. Welcome to part 3 of Evolution's series of his case for GOAT. I've decided to film these in sequential order of who I think the GOAT to come from Evolution is, down to who I think the worst member of Evolution is. But here's the thing, spoiler alert for this video and next video, I think all 4 members of Evolution have their right to be put in the GOAT debate. And I will be talking about my third favorite member, and in my opinion, the third best member of Evolution, even when you stack up their entire career, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Woo! Let's get into it. So, let's start with longevity. Ric Flair made his debut in the 70s, and wrestled his last match in 2022. Here's the thing, though. Ric Flair also should have wrestled his actual last match in '08, and he still would have had 30 plus years of longevity. Anything he did post 2008 WrestleMania 24 with Shawn Michaels is akin to Shaquille O'Neal playing in Boston. It's not entertaining. It's not Ric Flair. It's not good. The stuff in TNA he did, the last match he had SummerSlam weekend 2022, he shouldn't have done it. He should have let Shawn be his last match. He should have let someone who is one of the greatest of all time, bell to bell and in ring, he should have let him be his last. Because honestly, that entire WrestleMania weekend was the perfect way to go out. You wrestled your last match the night after you were inducted into the Hall of Fame. That was perfect. The reason Shaq's longevity does not get talked about enough is a similar reason to why I don't love Ric's, which is because if he had retired in '08, he could have said he was in the Orton category of that consistently good for that consistently long. But what he did after and the few matches he had really hindered it. Similar to, Celtic Shaq. Celtic Shaq shouldn't have existed. Shaq honestly should have retired, could have retired after the LeBron season he played with him. And Flair should have retired and stayed retired after the '08 Michaels match, which is why I don't hold his longevity against him, but I don't hold it in high as a regard as Randy Orton. And I know this is hard to talk about because Randy Orton is still going, so for all we know, his longevity could be hindered later on, and he could end up being in the Ric Flair category, the Celtic Shaq category. A legend that held on a little bit longer than they needed to. But with all that said, I don't feel like he's that guy, because Randy's even said, like, my body's breaking down, I'm probably out the door soon. I don't know how soon, but I hope and pray that whenever Randy does go out, he goes out the way he deserves, which is a great match, a great build, and Randy being Randy. But anyways, this video is not about Randy, this is about Flair. But Flair does still have insane longevity if you take out post Shawn Michaels. Because in that time, he won 16 world titles. Technically more, but officially recognized 16. He won the Intercontinental title. He won the US title. He's won Tag Gold alongside Evolution cohort Batista. He was taking crazy bumps well into His 50s, he took a superplex off a ladder from Matt Hardy for zero reason at WrestleMania 22, in the Money in the Bank match. But I feel like Rick was the guy that they're going to be talking about that month, which means they're going to be talking about me, which means I did my job. And honestly, yeah, that suits Rick. Bell to bell, let's talk about him. Fantastic. Um, is he my favorite bell to bell? Is he even in my top 10 favorites to watch work bell to bell? No. I'm going to be straight up with you. No. But he's still fantastic. There are not many wrestlers who can sell the way he does, who can do the moves he does and make them look like he's killing you. Um, Literally from chops, the jabs, everything he does looks real, looks great. Um, Rick is one of those guys that would has poured his heart, sweat, and a whole lot of blood into this business. And it's something that I appreciate. So in ring, obviously, Rick's got it. He's like I said, he's never been one of my favorites, but I'm not a unbiased individual. I'm not a biased individual, but I'm not an unbiased individual. I can be very biased and I can be very unbiased, both. But I think Rick, genuinely, bell to bell, is fantastic. Like, whenever I'm being completely unbiased, he is so high up there in terms of bell to bell work that Snoop Dogg will be like, okay, that's a little too high, bro. But Ric Flair's fantastic. In ring, he's great. His mic skills, he's good, but a lot of his promos feel very copy paste with a mix of like being very intense, insulting people, woo. Um, but then again, he's also got some promos where he feels genuine. Like the old Yeller promo with Shawn Michaels has always stood out to me because he gets in Shawn's face and starts like shoving him, screaming, "Old Yeller, huh? Old Yeller, huh?" And like, are you kidding? Like, that was a fire promo because Ric Flair's out here like, you're gonna compare me to Old Yeller and you're gonna go put me down? Okay, bet. At WrestleMania, it's up. And this was my first like WrestleMania build after like learning the difference in learning like actually what pro wrestling is, learning that it's scripted, it's predetermined entertainment, and learning what storylines are. I was only 8, but I understood that building the story is like half the battle for the match. Um, and so I really liked this. The "My Shoes Cost More Than Your House" promo with a tear in my eye from the '92 Rumble. Oh, that's one of my favorite promos ever. I'm not a Ric Flair fan, but with a tear in my eye is one of my favorite promos I've ever had the privilege of listening to. Um, like I said, he has a lot of promos that just sound like it's, hey, can I copy your homework? Yeah, just make sure you change it a little bit so the teacher doesn't notice. That's literally what some of his promos feel like, but then he's got some that feel so genuine, so unique, and so real that you don't know if he's being him or if he's being the character he's supposed to portray. Which, to be fair, I've always been told by interviews and like research, Ric Flair was Ric Flair. He did not change from who he was as a man to the character. So there's that. His entrance, aura, presentation, whatever you want to call it, incredible. The robe, the entrance, the like 360 slow turn is always so much fun. It is one of my. It is so just he holds his arms out, the robe like hanging off of him. He does the 360 so slow, and people are like, it's hypnotic almost. And that WrestleMania entrance at 24, because that is my all-time favorite Ric Flair match. And I think it is his best. I'm gonna be straight up with you. I think that is one of the best things Ric Flair's ever done in his career, if not the best. But the pyros going off as he does the turn was just so amazing. And kind of like the royalty music, the orchestra was awesome, always awesome. Um, I think Ric Flair's aura is out of this world. He has more aura than almost any pro wrestler not named Roman Reigns, John Cena, Cody Rhodes, or Edge. And they all have phenomenal aura. Like the second their entrance is hit, it is all eyes on them, and it's fantastic. I think his entrance is it's one of the least but most entertaining at the same time. Does that make sense? Like, it's not this fantastic entrance, but it does its job very effectively. Um, that's at least my output on it. You know, his accolades, obviously, like I said, 16-time world champion, officially recognized. I think the real record's like 21 or something. And it's still held by him. Um, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is like I think it is like 21. Um, but 16 officially recognized. Then you have a few Intercontinental title wins. I think one to be exact, but I think he might have held it a few more times. You have one of the longest Rumble performances ever. You have tag titles. Um, you have just carrying different companies on his back. He was never given the opportunity to carry WWE on his back because when he got there in the 90s, it was still Hogan, and then, like, it made that transition to Brett and Shawn, and then the Attitude Era, and the Ruthless Aggression Era. Rick was never given that opportunity, but he did carry the NWA and WCW, and I think even the AWA at one point on his back, which is all still very awesome. So Rick has literally every tool, and like I said, wrestling is one of the most opinionated things ever. You pick your guy, you stick with him. And I know a lot of my friends would die on the hill that Ric Flair is the undisputed number one GOAT. Hey, man, that's cool. That's you. That's not me. I don't think he's the GOAT, but hey, to each their own. You know what I mean? Now, me personally, I don't think he's the GOAT. I think he is undoubtedly top 10 to 11 range, minimum. I obviously think, like, you can make the arguments to put him in the top 5, top 3, at top 5, because my Mount Rushmore is pretty cemented. But, yeah, of course, he's one of, if not the greatest bell-to-bell professional wrestlers that we've ever seen. He can do it all. He can work with anyone. The only wrestler I've never seen him really work well with, I think he had a match with the Big Show that was not very fun, but the Big Show was never very good. At least for my eyes. He was a freak of nature giant. That was fun. Then we get to, in ring, he could literally, like, if you stepped in the ring with Ric Flair for 20 seconds, you would have learned so much in that time. The Miz learned a little bit from Ric Flair. Um, Edge probably learned from his match with Flair. That TLC match is so underrated. Um, Evolution, everyone probably learned something from Rick. If you shared the ring with Rick, you had to have learned something. That's my rule. And there are not a lot of wrestlers that I say that about outside of Rick, Cena, Orton, Edge, Triple H, and Taker. Those guys, if you step in the ring with, you should learn something. Like I said, his mic skills, he's got a few promos that they all feel like they're copy paste, and then he's got this handful of heaters, like I said, the with a tear in my eye promo. The my shoes costing more than your house, which is hilarious. Rick's that guy when it comes down to it. there's not a thing about Ric Flair that I don't respect outside of who he is as a person, if I'm going to be honest. But Rick is great. Genuinely, what he means to the business that I've loved since I was 3 cannot go understated. Like I said, I am not his biggest fan, and I used to call him overrated, but in a very way of like, a lot of people you talk to will have him at number 1. He's overrated in my eyes in the sense of I just don't have him at 1. Um, Kind of in the sense of like if someone called Karl Malone overrated, not because he wasn't a good ball player, but because he's nowhere near as good as like they think he is. And that's the way I am with Rick, but calling him overrated is still a drastic insult. Um, so I've kind of tried to dial back from calling him overrated at all. But I do think Rick is fantastic. Like, I can't take anything away from him. He's Ric Flair. He's the nature boy. Every time I hear a woo, I think, Rick. Um, 16 titles, 16 world titles. Like, he's an icon of icons. Um, Literally, one of the reasons I decided to go to my college, and I'm being 100% serious, like you were going to think I'm joking. We had to wear suits every Tuesday, like suit and tie, coat, the whole 9 yards. And when I was picking my college, I was like, so I get to dress like Ric Flair cutting a promo every week? Awesome! And so I did. Like, that's one of the big reasons I picked it. That, it was close to home, and the fact that it was the only school that was ever going to let me compete in track and field for him. So I was like, okay, yeah. But anyways, yeah, Rick is an icon of icons. If you watch wrestling, you know who Ric Flair is. If you don't watch wrestling, you know who he is. Do I think he is the absolute GOAT? No. But, of course you gotta put him in the GOAT debate. You can't just sit here and be like, I don't know about all that. No, it's Ric Flair. You put him in the GOAT debate because of the fact that he's Ric Flair. But when you put everything else in it, obviously he's got the argument, and belongs in the GOAT debate. And I'm not knocking you if you don't like Ric Flair, but to not put him in the GOAT debate would be like not put Kareem in the GOAT debate for the NBA. Like, it is absurd that you could do that. And like, Ric Flair is so iconic that people are still doing figure fours. People are still doing chops and trying to expertly, like, master them to an extent better than Rick. There's so much in wrestling that Ric Flair has kind of inspired that still happens so frequently, that it's insane. And like I said, I'm not Ric Flair's biggest fan, but I'm not an idiot, and I will give credit where credit is due. And Ric Flair, you deserve a whole heap and lot of credit because you are a legend. It is undisputed, undebatable, and honestly, do I have you in as my like number 1? No. 2? No. 3? No. 4? No. 5? No. You're in my top. I'll put you in the top 10 though, because you're a legend. You deserve to be in the top 10. And anyone who claims to be a wrestling fan, but they don't think Ric Flair is an all-time great, and they don't put him in the GOAT debate, should not call themselves a wrestling fan. I'm gonna be very honest with you. Um, and it's not be, and like I said, it's not be. I don't like Ric Flair. I'm not his biggest fan, but I'm a smart enough individual to say, absolutely, he belongs in the GOAT debate. And that's the video. Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Tell me about it in the comments below, and stay tuned for the next His Case for GOAT Evolution Edition, where we will be talking about the Animal Batista. I'm very excited for that one because I love Batista. I'm a big Batista fan. Anyone that knows me knows I am. I only watched Guardians of the Galaxy because he was in it. So I'm very excited for that video. But anyways, stay tuned for it. stay tuned for just my channel in general. Because I want to be more consistent this year, because last year I said I was going to upload weekly in 2025, and then mental health decided, no, you're not, and I didn't, and I'm sorry. But like I said, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And unlike John Cena, I can see you, and I will see you very soon. And don't forget, you matter.